We're back at the property that we measured, and today we're going to fit the blind. So we've unpacked everything, we've unpacked the blind and all the profiles. You've got your B1 and your B2 profile, which are just countersunk, and these are just for the blind to run across. Your A1 and your A3 profile, the blind actually gets attached to and the brackets are attached. You'll also notice in this profile there is a rubber grommet. This allows for the battery to be installed under the blind and the wiring to pass through. It's very important that the battery is installed underneath the blind because of the heat. It cannot be installed on top of the blind because of the amount of heat buildup. Now from your trim, we're going to measure down 10mm, and that's where the line of your trim will be. And that'll just make sure that when the bracket sticks across, that it doesn't foul onto the trim itself. Once you've marked your 10mm, get your profile, move it into position. Just make sure that it's central and you've got a fairly even gap either side. Move it up to your 10mm and you should have a hole virtually at the centre there, and just mark that hole ready to drill. Okay, so we've drilled a pilot hole. There's clearly nothing behind, there's no wood. If there was wood behind, that's what we'd be screwing into, and you'd feel that. The main thing is, if you are screwing into wood, don't over tighten the screws because they will push the plasterboard in and you'll probably pop the nails or the screws that hold the plasterboard in place. So as it stands now, we're going to put plugs in, drill all the other holes, put the plugs in and fasten the profile on. I've drilled and plugged all the holes, so I'm going to move the trim into place, line it up with the first hole, and using the screws provided, I'm going to tighten these up. You don't want to over tighten them, but you have to make sure that the trim is securely in place. So that's the first one done, so I'm going to move on to all the others and just repeat the process. We have now fitted rails A1 and A3, so we're going to get on to fitting rails B1 and B2, which fit on top of A1 and A3. I'm now going to rest rails B1 and B2 on top of the rails A1 and A3, like so. Once you've placed the B1 and B2 profiles onto the sides, make sure it's level just by pushing it up to match the trim on the side and mark the hole positions ready for drilling. Now that you've securely fitted all of rails, and please make sure that you clean them down to make sure there's no debris, you can go to unpack your blind and determine which way it's being fitted. This is easily identified by this metal tensioner and the reset button must face upwards. Now we're going to fit the blind. We're going to take it up the ladders, we're going to rest it on the side rails, and we're going to remove the rubber grommet that the wires are going to come through, because it's going to be in the way while we try and clip the blind in. Now that we've put the blind in place, what we're going to do is we're just going to remove this rubber grommet because it'll just hinder us getting the blind clipped into place. Okay, now that we've got the blind resting on the rails, this is the A1 side, which is your motor profile side. We're going to leave the elastic bands on. These just stop this rail from moving around because it could fall down, hurt somebody or damage something. Then what we're going to do is we're going to move it into the first bracket and use a moderate force to get it to clip in. you'll hear quite a loud click of it clipping in, and you know that's correct. Once you've clicked it in that first bracket, if you just pull the blind up at the bottom like that upwards, if it moves quite a bit, you're not clipped in, so you just have to take it back out and do it again. Once you're clear that that's clipped in, we'll move along the rest of the blind and clip it in as we go. Right, you heard that click. That's what you should be hearing every time you get it into one of the brackets. I've moved my ladder to a central position now, so I should be able to get the next two brackets in. So I'm just going to clip the middle one, and hopefully we'll get the same click. There we go, same click again, so we know that's secure. Right, we're on the last bracket now, so hopefully this one will go in. There we go, snapped into position again. That blind's secure. Once your blind's in place and you've checked it's secure, make sure your holes line up for where your grommet's going, and put your grommet back in place. Make sure that's secure. Right, now we need to secure this rail to the other side. So what we need to do first is cut this elastic band, but always cut it from underneath so you're nowhere near these cords. And get rid of that, discard that, and just leave it there like that. Now that you've cut the bands, what we're going to do is going to unroll this just enough so that we can get it off the side rails. And then we're going to roll it down till it completely unwinds. So we're going to fit the opposite side now. When we go up the ladder with this and we offer it up, it will look anything up to 80mm short. It isn't short, it's just under tension. And don't forget, it's come from our factory to the customer and everything's contracted a little bit. So when you're up the ladder, you will need to use quite a bit of moderate force to snap this in. And it's the same as the other side. You'll hear the click and you know it's in place. My colleague's just passed me this rail so I don't have to walk up the ladders with it. I'm securely on my ladders, so I'm going to off the rail back on the profile. Now, you can see that it looks short, but it is under tension and it will go in because these were set at the factory to these exact measurements. So what we're going to do now, we're going to proceed pushing it forward and we're going to clip it in place. As you can hear again, it's clicked in place with a loud click. You know that that is secure. Okay, I've moved my ladder along. I started in the centre because that's the easiest point. The next one is a support nylon. The last point has got the nylon and the drive cords, which is the hardest point. So if you've started from the middle, working your way along, you'll find it's easier and the rail's getting closer each time for it to clip in. I've moved my ladder position to the last position, and then we're just going to get the last two in. That's it, nice big click, you know it's in place. Now that the blind's fully installed, we're going to fit the battery pack with the battery clips and then install the solar panel and get the blind powered up. What we're going to do now is the battery clips that were supplied with the battery and the screws, we're going to fasten these onto the pre-drilled holes into the rail. The solar panel, I've already threaded the wire through, so what I've done is I'm just resting that on top of the blind just for convenience at the minute. You may find that getting that wire through and the motor wire is a little bit fiddly, so you may just have to pull the grommet out, feed the wires through, put the grommet over the top, and then just push that back in. And then you just want both wires poking out like that. You can move them up and down, there's plenty of play in them, and then we're ready to connect the battery. Right, what we're going to do now, we're going to connect the battery to everything. So we're going to put the solar panel in first, and that's the little connector. Now what's going to happen, when I connect the power, the blind will jog, and that just signifies a couple of things which I'll explain. So I'm going to connect the power up first. Right, the blind jogged backwards and forwards. What that means is that the handset is paired and all the limits are set, so the blind's ready to go. So we're just going to take some of the slack out for the solar power wire. Clip that side in, clip that side in, tuck that wire over the top, and just make sure it all clips in perfect and that wire is tucked in neatly over the top. This is the solar panel that I had resting on top of the blind. Important not to touch the glass, you don't want any fingerprints on it. You notice the little red tabs are self-adhesive. I added them earlier. Now the best place to put this solar panel is directly onto the glass so it gets maximum light. Doesn't need sunlight, it just needs daylight, but it's better to be there. There is a shelf on top of here, or you may be tempted to just put this solar panel on top of the blind, on the rail. You can do that, but any dust and anything in the air will eventually just drop onto the top of the solar panel, and that'll reduce the amount of output from it eventually, and you'll have to periodically get up and clean it. I'm just going to pop that back up there for a second. With the solar panel, you get a wipe. I suggest you use it. You clean the glass with that thoroughly, takes off any grease and residue, and then once you put that panel onto the glass, it's never coming off and it'll work perfectly. Okay, I've took the self-adhesive off the solar panel. I've cleaned the glass, I've made sure it's dry, and I'm just going to add that then to the window. Give it a good push, make sure it's fully on. The excess wire, just neaten that up. You've got a gap down the back of the blind, you can just secure that down there and it doesn't stick up as bad then. And we're ready to go. The blind's fully installed. The handset's out of the box. It's already been programmed. So all you need to do then is you push down and your blind will shut. If you want to stop it, you press the My button, which is stop. And to retract the blind back to its original position, you press the Up button. Now the blind itself will always stop at either end. It'll run on slightly as it recalibrates itself each time. That's normal.